I've been in Palestine for 2 weeks and 1 hour now, and I still have very few words to describe what I see. I don't think many of the children here have ever existed without tank shell holes in their walls. I think even the youngest of these children know that life is not like this everywhere. They try to get me to practice my limited Arabic. Yesterday I tried to say, "Bush is a tool," but I don't think it translated quite right. Anyway, there are 8-year-olds here more aware of the workings of the global power structure than I ever was 2 years ago, at least regarding Israel.
I think Rachel writes so well, and she's got such a breadth of knowledge and is so articulate, and her language is so, the language is quite dense, so it's just been getting my head around the concepts and then translating them in a way that is easeful and not in a way that they are big concepts. So it's this sort of process of understanding them, but then putting them across in an easeful way is quite a challenge. Yeah.
I personally heard about My Name is Rachel Corrie back in 2006 when I was at NIDA in Sydney. I was looking for a graduation piece for my directing year. We have to do a show at the end of that year, and I read Rachel Corrie then, became aware of it then, but it was too long in length to consider as a graduation piece, so I just sort of stuck it to the back of my mind. And then when I came down to Christchurch to the Court Theatre on my internship last year, I saw that Ross, the artistic director, had scheduled it in for the 2009 season, so it was very exciting. And then he said, "Well, do you want to direct it?" So, you know, it was sort of two things that ended up being one, so that's great.
I've been working on this with Lara via Skype, and Lara came to Sydney briefly for a few months now. I've known the piece Rachel Corrie for a couple of years. I discovered it at NIDA and was really excited with the opportunity to design it. Being a young woman, it's a piece that's really speaks to me highly, and it's a show that I have seen before, done professionally as well. You know, you just have much more influence over the colour palette, the style of the piece, and how heightened each element you want to make, and it's really nice when you get to do both and sit back and say, that's my work. It is nice collaborating with other designers, but personally, when you have your hand in both, it's, especially on a smaller show like this, it's much more satisfying.
As you can see, all our sound is generated on computers. What we use is a multiple different sources of sound. We create things ourselves. We find stuff on CDs, and even off DVDs and film, we can get ideas of sound. And then what I do is use computer software to put it all together. So one of the big files, or one of the big things I've been working on at the moment for Rachel Corrie, is trying to get a really authentic sound for when she arrives in Jerusalem. I think that's the hardest part, because to give an audience without the visual realization of what's going on and what is happening, just to give them an audio without any visual. I think what we do at the court regarding sound design is probably some of the best you're going to get in the country. The people we have working here, as well as myself, we all work very closely with the directors. We all understand dialogue and theatre, and everyone is passionate about what we do.
Been here 6 years. I'm doing lighting design, operating, installing lighting rigs, that sort of thing. We're currently at the moment working on a show called Rachel Corrie. It's a good challenging show for me. As you would have seen from the set, it's quite an isolated rhombus in the middle of the stage. The challenge for me is that there's two obstacles here. One, we need to limit ourselves to the rhombus, because as the director's note was that we wanted this to float like an island, which means we don't want to see any light outside of it onto the back wall, and also not to cast any shadows of the actor beyond the rhombus itself. which is easy enough in itself, but we also need to be able to get into her eyes, because Rachel is, throughout the evening, maybe an hour and a half, telling us the story of her travels and the experiences that she had before the end of her life.
I haven't directed a one-person show before, but I have directed a play that had 3 characters that all had individual monologues. They didn't interact together on stage physically. They each had their own story. So I find this really similar in structure. And funnily enough, the designer, Rita Carmody, designed that production and is designing this one. And we were talking about how similar the process has been in getting it up on its feet.
Yeah. I'm quite a cerebral person, and so I've been really trying to work on the idea of unlocking things, not necessarily through intelligence, but through just being physical. And I'm always trying to do that in acting and in work, because it's sort of one of my challenges I set myself, and this has been really good for that, because it's a lot of problem solving in these rehearsals, and so it's a lot of just getting on my feet and trying to work it out on my feet, which has been, which I'm learning I am also good at, as well as text.
You gave me a potential. I love you, but I'm growing out of what you gave me. I'm holding it inside and I'm growing outwards. You made me. You made me.